big part of my problem with the system of schooling, they're in a system that has been continuously dumbed down on purpose. The kids are distracted and the parents are distracted. We have made school this very narrowly focused thing. So we've gotten rid of the arts and humanities, put curiosity on the back table. Having that sort of knowledge used to be the gateway to more options in the future. There's a lot of people that believe the options are there, whether you know anything or not. That's got us in a dangerous spot.
Matt Beaudreau, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome to Point of Impact.
Man, honor is absolutely mine. I'm glad we got to do it this way too. It was really fun getting to know you, and so I'm honored to get to do it this way.
Yep, I've already told you plenty of times, but once more isn't enough. I had such a great time talking to your students, and was just blown away by the level of questioning at the end. I was so impressed. These were like young adults asking some pretty deep questions, and I was very impressed.
Isn't it the best, man? I get to do that every week, and I have for years now, and get to see these young men thrive. I mean, really, like the way they step up to the plate and learn to ask these questions, and it's coming from a place of genuine curiosity from them, right? And really wanting to be better. I always tell people, man, if you want hope, if you want to stop and get yourself out of the narrative of, oh my gosh, this generation's ruining everything. You want to get out of that? Come to one of those calls and you'll go, okay, we're in good hands. You know, it's the best.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about that, because what is it that kills curiosity in our education system?
Such a good question. Such an important question. I have come to very much believe, I've got 2 decades in education, and I don't claim to have all the answers for anything. Every year I go, man, I got more questions than I do answers. But I've come to believe that curiosity is what I call one of the factory settings. I really think it is inherent to who we are. It's part of the design. We're born that way. We want to know answers. We want to dive in. We want to ask great questions. We look at the world with wonder. And a big part of my problem with the system of schooling that we implement is that we tell kids, look, there's one thing that's important that you've got to know. It's this one thing. Here's the one way to do it. I need you to regurgitate it exactly as is. And we put curiosity on the back table. And we say, look, don't fail. Don't fail. Failure's bad. Don't fail. Right? It doesn't matter that you learned by failing. It doesn't matter. You learned to walk by falling over and over and over and over again. And you were just so curious on what it would look like on the other side if I just keep going. Right? That doesn't matter. Take that out of your mind. Don't fail. And you just do this one way. And it doesn't matter if you're interested in what we're talking about or not. And I think, that's we do ourselves a disservice, and we do our kids a disservice. And I think that does strip their curiosity eventually. They get into that pattern. That's a tough place, man.
Yeah, I know it's a common theme in what you've been talking about, your speaking events, podcasts, and definitely with Apogee, is that you're teaching these young men how to be men.
Yes, sir.
And teaching them how to actually be productive,
Yes.
have sovereignty and be capable.
Yeah.
But how did you, I know we definitely want to do a deep dive on this.
Yeah.
Where did you start pulling on this thread? What led you to education in the first place?
It's a great question. So it was happenstance that got me into education. I had always done well in school, and I differentiate between the two. Schooling is that specific system. Education is this process of growth. It's a natural process of growth that I don't think, is supposed to be done until we're 6 feet under. I'd done well in school and realized that didn't set me up for much of knowing who I was. I didn't have high expectations for myself. I was a good athlete. I could talk to girls. That's great. And I got my straight A's in high school. I got my straight A's in college, but I still came out going, I don't know who I am. I don't know where I want to go. I don't know who I want to be. So I had these menial jobs, and I was at least had a work ethic, and it landed me at Stanford University a few years after graduating from college. And that's really where the education bug kind of hit. I was meeting all these young men and young women who were not much younger than me at the time while I was working there. And they were brilliant. I mean, they were far smarter, far more intelligent than I am. But I saw the struggle. I saw the struggle from the emotional standpoint, their inability, and again, not a blanket statement, but there were so many with an inability to really communicate, to see how, the gifts that they had were going to play into anything greater. So I naively at the time went, okay, well, maybe this is what I'm called to do, is go fix this, and I'll go be a teacher. And so then I became a public school teacher, public school administrator, private school teacher, private school administrator, went through that whole system. And loved every minute of it, and also still saw that we were not holding up high expectations for young people, that we were still focused so much on money and politics and agendas. And we had gotten away from, hey, young people are wildly capable. They're far more capable than they ever imagined. And we're not inspiring them, and we're not showing them, that this is the truth. And that ultimately led me down the path of what we're creating here. But that's how I got into education in the first place.
Well, there's two different components there. And you mentioned the content, like
yes, sir.
Politics and
yes, sir.
what we're teaching them. But what about how we're teaching them?
Yeah.
It's almost commonplace now to realize, and people know, that the system is not great for educating our kids, but it's the system we've got, and nobody knows what or how or if we can change it. But
yeah.
Can you give me a little background on how did we develop this system in the first place?
Yeah, that's such an important question, and I always start this with the caveat of look, I know there are some really good men and women who are working in our school system, and I am the biggest supporter of them. I need them there. I want them there. If there's anything I can do to help them, I am all in. But the system itself really it's a Prussian system. When I say Prussia, I don't mean Russia. I mean like Germany, right? So it's a Prussian system that was ultimately developed as behavior control. I mean, it was really a behavior management system that was brought to us. Learning and human beings learning and moving forward really is a simple process. We have always learned by doing. We have always learned by watching the world around us and seeing the examples around us, and then jumping in and diving in. It's the same way we learn martial arts. It's the same way we learn to talk. It's the way we learn to walk. It's the way, an apprentice on the job learns, how to be a blacksmith. It's the same thing. You're working with a mentor. You're watching them, and you're coming along, and you have somebody next to you as they lead by example, and you learn the craft. It's really a simple process. Schooling takes everything out of that. And there's a gentleman named John Taylor Gatto who passed a few years ago, but Gatto. I always recommend people read his books. He was the foremost historian on how this system came to be, but it was a Prussian military system that really was designed as behavior management above and beyond all else. And it was brought to our country, and the people that brought it to our country, Rockefeller, spent a lot of money at that point to make this there was a lot of handshake deals to make this a government mandated sort of system. And he put the equivalent of I think what's about $1.5-ish billion today into making sure this became a government standard. And he says, I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. And somebody famously asked him, well, what are you going to teach these kids? What are we going to do with these kids? He says, I'm going to teach them much about nothing. And so it was essentially a nod to, we're going to take some very simple skills that can be learned very quickly. We're going to drag it out, and we're going to make it seem like it's this long, arduous process that really is not. And that was the beginning kind of the downfall of the system in general. So yeah, John Taylor Gatto will do the best job of anybody I know as far as laying that out for people. I highly recommend nobody believe a word. You don't have to believe a word I say. Go read his stuff.
And this was right around the Industrial Revolution, right?
Yes, sir.
So we could have,
Yes, sir.
people working in the factories,
Yes,
not questioning authority, just like you
correct.
said, good workers.
Correct.
But our society, the economy, all of it, everything is transformed, is evolved, except the school system. Why is that so difficult to change?
Yeah, isn't that the important question? Why do we not change when the world around us is changing so rapidly? Why do we not change? Now there are people who go, well, this is the way it's always been done, and we've done this now for over 100 years, and so we've got a lot of people that don't really know any other way and are just assuming it really has become this. The way I look at it, it's become a religion where it is the thing you must not question, right? Orson Scott Card has this great quote where he says, "We question all those things we believe, except for those we really believe, and those we refuse to question." And I always thought that was a powerful thing. And this has become a religion that has been, it is not in vogue to question it because it seems like you're questioning wanting a strong moral fabric for society, right? There's these everything that's equated, and that's really not the case. We're just questioning: is there a better way to do this? But I take parents through this logical progression of like, look, here's where schooling came from. Here's a way to do things a little more simply, a little more direct, and potentially more powerfully. What about this? They go, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, I see it from a logical standpoint, but there's so much wrapped up in their emotion. They're like, I really am going to have a hard time leaving that. And if I pull my kids out, what will people think? And what will my parents think? And oh my gosh, can they still get into college? And there's all this fear wrapped up culturally that's going to make things really, really difficult to change.
But there are other schools doing it different ways. Montessori schools. There's the other school in Texas, Active School.
Acton Academies. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
There's academies, alpha schools, Montessori schools. There are a number, thank God, of campuses now that are doing things a little differently. Yes, sir.
also during the COVID, and you said it, the kids, the school, the system, that teaches our kids not to act up, to behave and obey. And COVID just showed how good, how effective our programming is. Even when I'm having a conversation with my son, he's my oldest is 15.
Yeah.
And he's really bright. He's a terrific athlete, a great personality, super funny. And then I'll ask him something like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I don't know.
Yeah.
And you're going to be driving soon. How are you going to pay for repairs or gas or going out money? And he's like, I don't know. And we're entrepreneurs. My wife and I, we have real estate. We have a small e-commerce business online, and I'm always talking to him about little entrepreneurial things he can do on his own, and he almost has like zero interest. Like I'm talking a different language.
Yeah.
And I ask him, how are you going to make money? He's like, oh, maybe I'll go to the grocery store and see if I can be a bagger.
Yeah. 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 So I love this. I have these conversations all the time. And so first of all, thank God he has got the leader at home that he does. And I haven't had the pleasure of meeting your wife, but I have no doubt she is the same. And so thank God he has you there, leading the way. And there is an element, look, when I frame all this up, there's no such thing as perfect. There's no perfect parent. There's no perfect kids. None of that exists. But I'm very much a big believer in, the Vince Lombardi, like, hey, if you shoot for perfection, you'll never get it, but on the way you might catch some excellence, right? I'm all for it. And so I think this is an important conversation, man, with what are the kids, and I'm not talking about your son, but I'm just talking about kids in general. What are they what are they seeing? Who are they around? But in this day and age, in 2025, as we sit here and record this, it's almost maybe more important to go, what are the distractions that are taking them away? That to me is we do a good job as parents, I think culturally going, okay, what's the next engine I can give them? What's the next opportunity? What is the next engine I can put on this boat? But culture has never put more anchors on the boat than there are now, right? So school can be a massive anchor. The people they're around at school that have a massive influence on them can become a huge anchor. Social media can be a huge anchor. Video games can be, and I'm not vilifying any of these, but I'm saying each one of these can be an anchor. And oh my gosh, if you have them all together, they can be a thing that makes the ship not move no matter how many engines are there. Right. And so it's such a multifaceted thing, man, but it is the engine of who's around them. What are they seeing? What are the questions that are being asked of them? What are the expectations? Yes, yes, yes. And are we eliminating all of these distractions to the best of our ability? It's never been more difficult to be a parent. I really believe that because of all of that. But maybe it's never been more important either because of all that.
And you got into education. You studied.
Yes, sir.
You studied public and private school systems, yes, and you said you kind of still group them together.
I do.
But what did you find out that what that formula that they've got that wasn't working?
Yeah.
And then how did you start in your mind and start piecing together the school that you wanted to create?
Man, such a good question. I'm always looking for optimization. So I'm looking at what are these factory settings that I mentioned earlier? What are the factory settings for this part? Well, factory settings for people are they want to communicate, they want to ask questions, they operate with curiosity, they have this wonder, they have things that they are naturally inclined to and really want to dive into. There's development levels that are baked into humanity. School goes outside of all of those. We don't operate based on development levels. We don't operate based on, their natural inclinations or inquiry. We're not looking at, okay, what is this? What is the unique gifting? What do all people need to know? When do they need to know it? But then what is also the unique gifting of this young person? So it's completely antithetical to human development. So as we started building out our own, at the very least, we wanted to operate based on human development, meaning there's big kind of brain jumps that happen like 5 to 8 years old is kind of one sort of developmental cycle. And then around 8-ish, there's another big jump that happens kind of brain wise. And then 8 to 12 is kind of this own level. And then there's another big jump, and then kind of 12 to 16, and then 16 to sort of, 18, 19, 20. Like each one of those comes with a different ability and a different way of looking at the world. So what if we operate based on that? What if we operate based on opportunities around that? So that's really where we started, as we started building things out, going, okay, 5 to 8, they need to play. They don't need to be hammered on academics. We can read to them. We'll read with them. We can play some games and kind of talk normal numerology, but man, they need to focus on play. They need to focus on manners. Schooling wise, we're hammering academics. We're like, oh, you're 6, you can't read, you're behind. Stop playing, stop what you need to do everything to dive into. And we don't even do phonics. We do sight words, right? Just memorize this. And just like we're doing all these things that are antithetical to how people have always learned for that. We're like, no, man, we need to let them play. We need to have great conversations. We need to talk about what interactions look like. How do you show up to the world? How do you behave in these various areas? We want to make them good people to be around and people that want to serve and help lead others. They'll catch, and depending on boy or girl, they'll catch some of the reading and stuff earlier. My daughters, with us raising them that way, my daughters taught themselves to read at 4 and 5 respectively. My son did not look. We always made reading fun. He loved to be read to, but he didn't learn to read until he was 7.5. My son is now 9.5, reads at least a book a week. And if grade level was a real thing, he's reading middle school and high school level work, classics, all over the course of 2 years, because we didn't go against the child development, right? That matters. I think that matters. And I've seen that over and over and over with thousands of kids at this point, to know that I lean into that. That is kind of a thing. So, developmentally, we're looking at that. Then from like 8 to 12, then they're starting to go, okay, we want to be able to be competent. We want to own something of our own that is like our responsibility. And this is their natural inclination. So that's where we start to dive a little more into the academic side of things. And it's where we start to really dive into the personal responsibility side of things. So on campuses, they hammer the academics from 8 to 12, some of those foundational, fundamental things, and they're curious about it at that point. And they'll suck it up and they'll be like, yes, here we go. And we'll give them responsibilities on campus. They've got jobs on campus. They have things they own. We do it at our own house. My kids we live on a farm. They all have jobs on this farm that they own. Meaning if I want to go figure out if I'm like, hey, I need to go do something to the chicken coop, I go to my son and go, hey man, chicken coop's yours. This is what I'm thinking on this. What do I need to know? What do I need to do? Right? You own that. That's yours. And so we want them to have those responsibilities. 12-ish is when they start to be able to think in more of an abstract term. They can start to see patterns. In life, they can start to think in abstract. They can start to look towards the future, and they can start to understand, okay, how do my actions now impact that future? I no longer like to ask kids, especially at 12, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? At 12, I want to ask them, who are you right now? What do you want to do right now? What are you really good at right now? Let's just start there. And let's continuously ask ourselves that question, because then they'll continue to move forward and adapt from that. So they want to have big ideas, big questions at that point. And that's where we start to have them create. We start to have them collaborate on campus to solve real problems. And that's where we want to throw everything at them. Like, hey, 12 to 16, I want to just expose you to everything. I want you to go work at the store as a bagger. I want you to do that. And I want you to write a book. And I want you to, dive into marine biology and understand the flora and fauna of the San Diego coast. And I want you to I want to expose them to as much as humanly possible over those 4 or 5 years. Because then when they hit 16, 17, they're looking for identity, and they have an idea if they've been exposed to enough things in that order. And again, I'm generalizing all of this, but I want to give people that idea. If they've been exposed and allowed to walk through that journey roughly associated with that developmental level at 16, 17, they start to go, here's where I think I'm going to make an impact on this world. And they start to really go, here's my identity and here's what I want to do next. And they want to take ownership of something and really kind of dive in and create and start to go towards mastery. Like that's a thing we've taken out of society, like mastery. Mastery is a good thing. It's okay to go master something. It doesn't mean you think you're the best ever and you're good at everything. And you go, I suck, Aaron, at so many things. I'm such a moron at so many things. But there are 1 or 2 things that I think I'm getting close to approaching mastery level, and I'll just continue to try to hone those. And that's my imprint on this world. And they start to dive in. So we took a look at our campuses and developed it around that ethos. Oh, and hey, by the way, parents, you matter during this journey too. And that's another thing we do different is we make sure mom and dad are growing while the kids are growing through those developmental stages. I know that's a lot, but that's how we roll.
Well, I have heard you talk about the parents' involvement.
Yes,
and
sir.
there was, I think there was an example where, I guess, is this after 15, 16, the older students that are given 6 weeks to do a very, soup to nuts project.
Yes, sir.
And this is where those times where sometimes maybe the student doesn't want to be involved.
Right.
Can you explain a little bit more about how this is so different than the traditional school? What the kind of responsibilities are given and how the parents get involved?
Yeah, that's really good. So there's a couple of avenues there. So there's the what are the kids doing, and then the how do the parents get involved? What does parent involvement look like? Because it doesn't look like what most people think of parental involvement looking like. So on these projects, we want them to just get used to solving real world problems and having to do that in a group. There is value, there is utility to knowing. I worked at a, let's see, 15. I worked at a restaurant in the town that I grew up in, and I worked 25 hours a week while going to high school, right? I worked a lot. I knew relatively quickly the food industry is not for me. There's value to that. There's value to knowing that. And there's still skills that come out of that. I still had to work with people I didn't like. I had to talk to customers that were not, having their best day. And I still had to show up on time. Although there was utility to that, but there was also utility to knowing I did not want to do this for a career. I can speak to this, very clearly. So for our kids on these campuses, look, it's only 6 weeks. You may fall in love. You may hate it. You may be somewhere in between. But you're going to work with some other people to solve a problem. You're going to try to make something happen, and we're going to see what we can pull out of this. We don't have any preconceived notions on our side. And I've learned enough to know some kids who think they're going to hate it are going to love it. Some kids who think they're going to love it are going to hate it. And some are going to be indifferent to the thing, but they're always glad they experienced it. So we might take a project where it's like, okay, for the next 6 weeks, you're going to have to build 3 different structures and run electricity to them. And so the first structure is going to be just based out of Legos. The second structure is, and you're all going to have to collaborate, in groups of X amount of students to do this. Legos, one you're going to 3D print, and one you're going to build out of wood, hammer, nails. Right? There's different skill sets in all of those. And you're going to run some sort of electrical power to these, and you got to light it up somehow. Okay, let's figure this out. Right. And so we're going to give them a little bit of background knowledge. We'll dive into, we'll pull together YouTube videos. We'll talk to electricians. We'll survey, people in the community. We'll bring people in. We just go, hey, man, in general, like this is kind of where we want to go. Like, I don't even necessarily have a bigger outcome than that. What can we create? What can we do? When we allow ourselves to just even be curious on the assignment itself, like what the hell is the outcome going to be? I don't know. We'll see. Like that can produce amazing things. Or we can have a more tangible outcome where we might do that for 6 weeks, and the next 6 weeks go, okay, hey guys, 6 weeks from now, we've got parents and community that needs to come into this auditorium, and they're going to need to see your remake of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde as a play. You're all going to work together for this. Somebody's creating the costumes. Somebody's creating the set. Somebody is rewriting the script. Somebody is doing all the lights, tech, and AV. Somebody is selling the tickets and marketing this entire thing, right? So you give avenues for everybody's interest to potentially come out, but they're all collaborate. And hey, by the way, 6 weeks, we got people walking through these doors, and you're going to live or die on whatever you've created at this point. It's either going to crush, or it's going to suck, or it's going to be somewhere in between. But this is you guys. Here we go. Right. And so putting those, tell me that the learning experience is so robust. You get to know so much about not just the materials, but you get to know so much about yourself, about the other people you're working with, about how life actually works when you're continuously running through projects like that over and over and over again. You do that for 4 or 5 years, every 6 weeks, you're doing that with other people and your peers. You come out at 16, 17, 18, ready to go, okay, here's the thing that really lit me up. And now I want to dive in and become an apprentice in this area. That's the goal, right? It's that.
That sounds so great. I want to go to this school and do all of these projects.
It's the best.
So, keep going.
It is the best. And the beauty is, as an adult on the campus too, as we run some of these projects, man, I can tell you, speaking from experience, as an adult on some of these campuses, they're like, okay, cool. What do I do first? And I'm like, hey, guess what? I don't even know how to do any of this. I get to be co-curious with you. I don't know. So I get to come along as just this project manager with a little more life experience, right? Where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man, let's figure this out. Here's kind of what I'm thinking is we start here. What do you guys think? Right. And then we work together to try to build this thing out. It's the best. Because again, what is the goal of what we're here for? We're here to move forward and get better. Period. End of story. Don't overcomplicate it more than that. And there's no way to not get better when we're pushing forward on this. Now, what does parental involvement look like? Parental involvement is you coming in and being co-curious, or you being the parent that's like, hey, by the way, I build houses. So I'll come in on this first project and help you build. And I'll kind of take on the lead on this. Cool. Sounds good. You've got experience there. Come on in and help us out. And parental involvement also looks like, hey, when they get home, the growth mindset verbiage that we're all using on campus, are mom and dad using that there? When we're talking about being proactive and eliminating distractions, are mom and dad eliminating distractions? What does the marriage look like there? Is mom pursuing her dreams? Is dad pursuing his dreams? Are they doing that together? Do they understand what creating a legacy looks like? Do they understand their financial picture? We work with the parents to make sure they're dialed on all of that, so that there is congruence when that young person gets home. Mom and dad are on this journey of growth too.
You mentioned, everybody has their different aptitudes, different likes and dislikes, and propensities for different skills or interest areas. But there are some basics, just like school teaches us. There are basic building blocks for. There's knowledge that can lead to the wisdom, but you need to still build those basic blocks.
Right.
You push, like you said, you push the academics early on, with 8 to 12.
Yes.
But when we're talking about the modern day school system, the problem is with the grading the system. How do you? I guess it's almost like threading a needle, where you still got to make sure that they learn the certain things, but you don't. Do you grade on a similar system? How do you make sure that everybody's keeping up, even in those areas where they're not as interested?
It's a good question. So we live in this world now where we are lucky enough to have so many platforms that will take all the traditional academic metrics and they will lay it out for us in a really easy to consume fashion, and they will require mastery to move through them. And these platforms will define mastery at about 90% or above. So here's the way we operate with this. I always ask parents to think through these questions, and then we provide these platforms and options. The questions are always, what does everybody need to know? I ask parents to think through that. And the majority of them will really struggle with that. Like, what do all humans need to know? Everybody will get generally a similar answer, but they'll have to think about it for a while. But then there's variance in that. So what does everybody need to know? You'll be surprised about how much of that comes out to not be academic either. But what does everybody need to know? Right? Yeah, shocking. When do you need to know it by? And then what is the most efficient way to gain said knowledge? And then we'll just take it to the next level of what do you or your children want to know? When do they want to know it by? And how is that going to be efficiently acquired? How is that skill going to be acquired? So those are the questions we always go back to. And the beauty of it is it shows parents that everything is not as linear as we've been told. School makes it seem like learning is a very linear thing, and life is very much not linear. And so when we keep going back to those questions, people can get on board and go, okay, yeah, you're right. This is going to take more thought. It's going to take a little more nuance. There's more effort that has to be in there. So when it comes to the basic academics, we put everything out there in terms of have you done it and proven that you can do it sort of system versus a grading system. Here is, let's say, Khan Academy, for example. We've got all the kindergarten level math, first grade level math, second grade level math. That's great. We'll put it out there. And you're going to spend a couple hours a day on that basic mathematical skill acquisition. And some students are going to need a couple hours a day on these academics, and it's going to take them 5, 6, 7, 8 years to get through all of what we consider, quote unquote, K through 12, go through algebra or whatever, K through 12, and they'll get through that. Some students will get through the entire K through 12 curriculum in 2 to 3 years, the whole thing. And they'll score at 90% using something like Khan Academy. They'll score at 90% on every single thing. They'll go through it fast because that part's easy for them. Our job is to connect with the parents and go, when do you want them to know certain things by? This is where they are right now, today, as of December 11th, 2025. Here's where they are. We're going to meet with you next week, or we're going to meet with you next month. What would you like them to try to tackle? Here are all the platforms we can use. Here's all the curriculum we can use. Here are all the individual projects we can use. We have an entire repository of all of those things. What are the few things we want to pick for your student? And let's just take it week by week or month by month and dive in and see how they're doing. And if they need some extra help, we'll come in and help on tutoring. If we see them floating through all this stuff and it's no problem and we're there working alongside them and they're just crushing it, great. Then maybe we up the goals a little bit. But it's really that individualized for everybody. The basic mathematical reading, writing, arithmetic, a couple hours a day, they're good. They're good. And they know it applies to other things. They're connecting it to all the other projects we're doing. They go through all of those in a couple hours a day swimmingly.
You paint the picture, of how this will be useful in the future to these kids. And you do that when they're that young, 8 to 12 or even younger, how there's utility in knowing this stuff. I know, and I don't want to use any generalizations,
Sure.
but I know you've used an example of your daughter not appreciating math.
Yes, sir. Correct. Correct. Very much did not appreciate. So, yeah, my oldest in particular. So at the time of us recording this and talking today, my girls are 14 and 12, and my young man is 9. All 3 of them are on the precipice of the next birthday. So my oldest will be 15, actually a month from today. So they're about to be 15, 13, and 10. That oldest daughter of mine, she's written multiple books. She's another voracious reader, 1 to 2 books a week. She works, 5 or 6 days a week. In the summer, she worked about 60 hours a week. She's one of the hardest working adults I know, right at 14. And she has never been a lover of math. She's never been a lover of the traditional, let's sit down. Now she'll still do it because that's still a requirement where we're going to spend those couple of hours, hour or 2 during the day. And really at home, they're really it's about a focused hour a day on the academic piece for my kids. And we're still going to do that, and you're still going to rock through it. And I have told her you're going to at least get through algebra, which she is now. She's through that at this point. But she's never been a lover of any of that. Now, as soon as it came time to talk about the fact that she wanted horses, and I was all about getting her a place to have a horse as long as she could buy the horse, take care of the horse. And I meant it. I was serious. We'll find you a place we will move houses and make sure, this is when we were still in California, if you have enough money to buy a horse and you're ready to take care of a horse, here you go. But you got to launch a business. You got to figure something out. You got to figure out a way to make the money, track the money, keep track of all this kind of stuff. I'll show you how Dad runs his business. I'll show you our P&Ls and what a P&L is. I'll tell you what, as soon as we start talking P&L, as soon as we start talking money, as soon as we started talking about, wait, there's a trust system and a cash flow for how our family makes money, keeps money, invests money, gives money. This is interesting. Sitting down to Khan Academy, not interesting. This is interesting. Let's play with this a little bit. So she started her first business at 7. By the time she was 9, she had started multiple. She had one that really kind of took off. She and her sister both partnered together. They were 9 and 7 at the time, and they made, I don't remember how many thousands of dollars, but it was enough to buy 2 horses.
Wow.
And we moved to a place where we could have horses. We moved out of the home we were in because we were renting at the time, and we moved to another one in the country that had a few acres. And you better believe we had 4 horses on our property for the last 2 years before we left California. So
That's
money
incredible.
became the thing, right? That made numbers make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so she still to this day doesn't want to sit down on Khan Academy too much. But I'll tell you what, when we start talking about money, start talking about the business, she's all about it, man. And she can read a P&L like nobody's business.
So your oldest is an entrepreneur at heart, or is it that she has certain interests? She wanted a horse, so she needed to find out how to make the money, or needed all the stuff that it was involved in that. And it is, of course, math is necessary.
It was
to
necessary.
Deal with money.
Right. So then it became this interesting tool versus a thing that I'm being forced to do. And that's a human nature thing. That's all of us. We all still operate that way. I'm in my 40s. I still operate that way. It's like, what are the things that now there's things I know I have to do. There are things that I want to do. And inside our business, I'm willing to do all of it. But my gosh, if I can hire somebody that can do the things that I have to do but don't want to, but they look at that as play or as something that's really cool, right? Like it doesn't seem like work to them. Dear God, I want to hire them. Go get it. Like that's great. That's how we operate. The kids are no different, man.
That sounds so cool. And it doesn't feel like work,
right?
And it's actually kind of fun,
right?
And that's a tough thing because if parents I know feel like they got to force feed their kids certain values,
right?
You get work ethics, that kind of stuff,
right?
But then when the kids are driven to do it, is I don't have to remind my son to practice his guitar because he loves music.
Because he loves it.
He loves it.
Yeah.
He loves it.
It's that. And I do really believe I very much believe this, Aaron. I don't believe I've ever met an unmotivated child. I really don't. I think I've met distracted children who have lost their motivation. They're not unmotivated, right? And so I understand. And again, I'm not vilifying any of this, and I'm not saying, hey, parents, if you implement these things, you're a bad parent. Like, please don't hear me say that, because that's not the case. But when the child can wake up in the morning and they can go straight to, social media, they can go straight to their TikTok and they can get entertained on TikTok, and they put that down and then they go over and they're scrolling on, they're just watching, go down the YouTube rabbit hole. And then they go off to school and they're distracted at school by all of these kids who are exposing them to who knows what. And they're giving them all kinds of, who knows what's going on there. And again, there's great people there too, but they're being exposed to all these other things. And then they come home and then they jump on their video game system and they're playing their video games. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, cool. After all of that, I'd like you to get on your chores. I'd like you to read. I'd like you to, oh my gosh, all of that sounds freaking horrible. You know how entertained I've been all day long? I've been so entertained. And by the way, all of these forms of entertainment, physiologically speaking, have given me all of these dopamine hits. And dopamine's like the water in a swimming pool. So as you use it up during the day, the water gets lower and lower and lower and lower, and you actually have to give it time to refill itself. But they've been distracted all day with all these dopamine hits. It's literally physiologically depressed. And then we're saying, hey, now we'd like you to do your homework, take the trash out, go read a book, and they're like, how unexciting does that sound? Mm-hmm. And the parents go, they're just not motivated.
Well, not to mention the dopamine hits they get from screen time and all that. But right. Like you said, school itself is this anchor. It's energy draining.
Yes, sir.
And I just cramming them with information uh, telling them that they have to be quiet until raise their hand and they're called on. And they're physically tired from boredom
Yeah.
when they come home.
Yeah. Yep.
All they want to do is run around.
It's passive, theoretical passive learning where they're just being told this is what to do, when to do it. Here's what to regurgitate. And again, man, I got straight A's all through college. I took, every math course, trigonometry, calculus, statistics. I took all of them. I got A's in all of them. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I took a standardized test to show the parents at one of my campuses where I was from a mathematical standpoint. I had literally just come back from speaking on stage to the leadership and the future leadership of Lockheed Martin. I had just come back from speaking to them as one of my clients for a couple of years. I had, and I don't say this to brag, I say this to make a point. I had made about $40,000 for this brief trip to go speak to a few hundred people and give a little bit of this consultation. And I took this standardized test and I tested at a quote unquote 6th grade math level. I was running a 7-figure business. I had the speaking. I understand numbers enough to be dangerous and make some things happen. And I'm not awesome, but I couldn't pass the academics that I had passed for years and years. So did I really learn it? Right? Or did I just play the game while I was playing the game? And that, look, like some people will take that and go, yes, I really learned it. And now I apply it. And that, great. That's awesome. Stop pretending that means that's the same for everybody else.
Tell me about the federal government involvement in education and how that's affected our level of education since, well,
yeah,
there wasn't a Department of Education. When was that formed? That was...
Yeah, it was formed in late 70s. Every metric has gone downhill since then, right? And we fund based on agendas being put in place. We fund based on a scope of academic performance and testing performance that gets more narrow by the year. It's been one of the most, and I know people are like, well, you get rid of Department of Education and you get rid of all of these, critical services for those most in need. And those, all that's being proposed is you hand that back to the states and you just put the funding elsewhere. We want all children to be taken care of. Yes, I understand. But man, we have just made school this very narrowly focused thing. So we've gotten rid of, the arts and humanities. We've gotten rid of our shop and our home ec and all these things that really actually fold into skill acquisition for life. We've gotten rid of physical fitness standards. I'm a huge believer that if we just got back to real exercise, forcing real exercise, and we actually real food in our schools, real exercise for the kids, and we did that for the first couple hours a day, I think that in of itself would change everything for our kids, and we'd see improved performance. We'd see, decreased bullying. We'd see all of these things. But the government's involvement has just become more and more and more about testing, and then outside agendas, with all these lobbyists that we have going in, and it's just really gotten away from education. It really has. It's only continuing to do that.
I saw questions from it was like an elementary school civics test for the 1800s.
Correct.
And I know most adults today could not answer those questions.
Agreed.
And so, in fact, I couldn't answer all of them myself.
Agreed.
And I'm kind of geek out on civics.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. And so again, and I don't pretend it's just the schooling system, that's just a system issue, right? It's definitely not a good people. Are there bad people in the public schools? Yes, of course. There's bad people in any industry. The vast majority are there because they're good humans who want to do the right thing for young people. The vast majority are amazing humans. And they're in a system that has been continuously dumbed down on purpose. And We've got a parenting crisis where we've got people and the kids are distracted and the parents are distracted. And like we've got all of these issues that are coming back. And I don't pretend to have the answer on how to fix all of it. But dear God, I believe strong families, educated families is at least the first step forward. But man, I'm right there with you. The standards have been so dumbed down, and there's such a, having that sort of knowledge used to be the gateway to more options in the future. There's a lot of people that believe the options are there, whether you know anything or not. And I think that's got us in a dangerous spot, man.
What about after Apogee? How do you, if it's not the traditional standardized testing and grade point averages,
Yeah.
how do they move on to, say, university?
Yeah.
How do they show transcripts that say they have these basic, they can meet the standard at university?
It's a really good question. So there are a couple of ways that we tackle that. One, some of our campuses are official private schools in their state. So just like any other private school, they do create a transcript. Now, think about what schooling has always done. They just say, hey, you take a certain class, you obey to a certain level, you show a certain bit of regurgitation or performance or however we want to put it, and we'll give you the letter that corresponds with that. We'll put that on a transcript. Private schools do the same thing. And traditionally, they do the same sort of classes, the same sort of, we're extrapolating going, okay, this person has actually become competent in all of these things. And by the way, usually they've taken something like Khan Academy to all through the high school levels and all of those. So we can very easily put together a transcript that says these courses, these years, these grades, mastery across the board, because they've proven it. They've proven it. They've done 3, 4, 5 times the amount of work. But we'll actually just get more in depth and we'll go, okay, so Aaron, you're graduating from this school. And what is next for you? Oh, you want to go to college? Great. What colleges are you looking at? Where do you want to go? You want to go to college, potentially this one, and this one. Cool. Their admissions process is actually all a little bit different from one another. So let's make multiple transcripts that play into what they're looking for. And hey, by the way, we also during high school, remember how we had you make a digital portfolio of your work? So it's not just, hey, I'm a student that got these grades, but you showed the business that you started over here, the people that you you got to interview Mr. Aaron Hale, right, on the podcast, and you got to interview Andy Frizella on the podcast, and you got to remember, cool, we're going to highlight that in your digital portfolio. We have a digital portfolio that proves you've actually done a good amount of work already at 18 years old. And we're going to send off the transcript and the digital portfolio to every college, and we'll just tweak it to show the things that they're really looking for. Right. So we'll do that with our kids. And if they're coming to a campus that's not an official private school, it means they are technically, by state law, wherever they are, a homeschool student who still has parents who legally create the exact same kind of transcript and the digital portfolio. And some colleges, hey, by the way, when I was at Stanford, this is how this worked. Some colleges actually would rather see homeschool students come apply and want to see a digital portfolio and think college is a non-issue. And I don't always, I always hesitate painting these pictures because I don't want everybody to think, oh, well, I hear what Matt's saying. I'm not parenting for crap. And as long as I send them to an Apogee program, life is going to be good. No, there's a lot of work involved on all this, and everybody's got to come ready to rock and roll. But we've got students who've graduated from our Apogee campuses, and they get their high school diploma at the same time they get their college degree. Same time.
That sounds really competitive. You said there was digital portfolio rather than just your standard, almost like a resume, transcript.
Right.
I got a bunch of A's, and I was on the football team, and
I look like everybody else.
But what about performance at after, this post-secondary, when
Yeah.
they weren't taught how to play the school game.
Yeah.
And then they go to university, and it's just a more grown up version of the
Of the school
educational system.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had all the above. And when I say all the above, what I mean is we've had students that have gone there and been like, man, piece of cake. We've had students that have gone and gone, this isn't for me. This is a little silly, and I'm going to go and, try to make my mark on the world elsewhere. We've had every scenario that anybody else would have going to college. I mean, there's not really been anything different. But we've also had students that have been more open-minded because they know who they are. So they've gone to programs like Discover Praxis. So we partner with Praxis. Not everybody knows who they are. School, colleges, 4 years or 5 years, cost X amount depending on where you go. Come out with your degree, you hope you get a job. Most are not working in any field where that relates to their degree by any stretch of the imagination. But and there's surely no job guarantee. Praxis is a 1-year program versus 4 years. It's far less than most tuitions, and there's a job guarantee at the end of the year. And most students come out making a starting salary of at least like $52,000 or something like that. So, hey, those programs are amazing. We partner with them too. So we've also got students that are more open-minded for stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, we've had everything, and it's not like we've had everything.
When I was in the military, and I have this like Frankenstein degree from all these different colleges, all these transfer credits, and there were I could take a course just distance learning. What do they call it? Dante's. Or I can get all the course material at once, the book and everything, and just learn it as fast as I wanted to, and then just send in the work, and I get a credit.
Yep.
I can put that towards whatever. And I took in-class courses, piecemeal. I took online courses. There was a lot of, but of course, then to get a one degree from somewhere, you got to have a place that will accept all of those transfer credits.
All of those credits. Yeah. Yep. You're exactly right. I mean, there's more and more options all the time for these kinds of, which is another beauty of kind of where education is going, at least post high school education. Like you've got people say, well, what about college? What about college? Cool. Do you really want the education, or do you want the certificate that pretends you got the education? Which one are you looking for? Because there's about 20,000 college courses, and from Ivy League schools, and some of the best schools on the planet. There's about 20,000 courses that are freely available to anybody and everybody right now. You just don't necessarily get the credit for it, but you can take actual course. So if you actually want the knowledge and information, it's right there. And because that's been in existence for, 15 or so years where it's been like that, and it's just becoming more and more and more. Now there's companies that go, hey, and you show us that you passed this course, we'll actually give you the college credit for it too, and you can actually have your graduation. That's why we have students, again, who are getting their bachelor's degree simultaneously with getting their high school diploma. We have 18-year-olds that are graduating both at the same time.
There's also the fact that nowadays those degrees, they're getting far more expensive and much less valuable.
Yes, sir.
But I think we're getting a little bit long on time. I wanted to ask you though, how did you connect with Tim Kennedy, and how did Apogee get its start?
Yeah,
where'd that spark start?
Yeah, we had met briefly, and I say met meaning literally just met. We didn't become friends, but we had met briefly 20 some odd years ago. I was into martial arts too, and I had a handful of fights in the cage as a young buck, obviously not to the same level that Tim went with that. But we had met through that. So it was years later, 2020-ish. I had heard him on a podcast saying, that eventually someday he wanted to start a school. He wanted to do something for kids. And I had been doing that at that point. I had a few campuses that I had started and was running. And so I just reached out to his team and just said, hey, man, Tim and I met years and years and years ago, but I've been doing this. I know how to do it. If he's really interested in it, I'm glad to help. And I think that's cool. Would love to help. So we got back. We scheduled a meeting. I flew out to Texas in true Tim fashion. He's like, we're going to work out first because I want to see what you're made of. Put me through a disgusting workout. It was gross. But we got through it, and he's like, all right, cool. He's like, good. I wanted to just see if you were just some, school teacher that was out of shape, or if you kept yourself going. And so then we went and sat down and we started talking about the school, but then we just started going, okay, cool. What else can we do for these young men? And that, the school's going to take a little while to get up and running, but gosh, you've got good men in your circle. I've got good men in my circle. What if we put something together that was just a little bit of extra love for these young guys? And we put some of these mentors in front of these guys and gave them a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of motivation. And we put this roadmap out there. And so we started with the young men's program immediately after meeting in 2020. So by 2021, it was rocking and rolling.
Why just men?
We started with just young men simply because, one, we were men and knew what it was like to be young men. So we had been young men. And I know it's controversial this day and age to say we think men and women are different, but we do think men and women are different. And I've never been a young lady. So we started there really because of that. And because we saw the young men, the ones that were like young ladies can really fold into the school system a lot of times and still do well. Is it the ideal? I never believe that it is, but they can do well. Young men have this, we've got this thing inside of us, man, where we want to move. We want to go conquer. We want to go create. Like, we've got that DNA in us, and we're being underserved in the schools even more so than the young ladies are. And so that's why we wanted to start there. And that naturally progressed to, the dads of these young men going, we'd love something like this for the men, which then naturally progressed to the wives of the dads going, we'd love something like this for the ladies. And now we've got the young ladies as well, all being led by females, as we think it should be. But yeah, that's why we started with the young guys.
Anything I should have asked about education, men, and Apogee that I haven't asked you?
I don't think so, man. And this is just, I want parents to start here. Like, start here. Start diving into this. Start diving into the why. Start diving into what's happening in your own home. Are you leading by example and taking your kids along? Just start being willing to ask those questions again. And I'm not saying we've got all the answers, but I'm saying we've got a hell of a lot of amazing humans who are working together to try to figure out what these answers are. And it's a pretty freaking great process. So we get to bring in amazing humans every week, like yourself. So no, I think we covered what we need to cover on that.
Awesome. Well, then I think that's a perfect time to move into our final segment. That's the countdown to impact.
Yeah.
That's 3 books, 2 quotes, and 1 person who have all made an impact in your life.
Dear God. I love this question, and it's so hard. So we read so many books with the men, with the women, with the young teens. So picking 3 is going to be tough because we read so many every year. I'm going to pick some that are current and near and dear to my heart. So Courage to be Disliked. Real good framework for owning choices and dissolving excuses. It's based on Adlerian psychology. Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Mm-hmm. I think it anchors everything in purpose. The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Is one that I have found out a lot of people have not read, but I think it's an amazing book at talking about defeating the resistance inside ourselves and building these disciplined habits and treating your life's mission like a professional that you're called to be. So I'll pick those 3 books. I could pick 100 more. 2 quotes. One that we just used at our fundraiser this last weekend, and David Garibaldi did this amazing painting around it. But Alejandro Jodorowsky said, "A bird born in a cage believes flying is an illness." And I think that represents so much of what we've talked about here today too, right? A reminder for parents and leaders, like, courage and freedom has to be modeled. It's not lectured. Got to get outside the cage. Other quote, I'll go with Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but it is a habit. I think we should all be chasing that excellence. And if I have to go with a person, that's another one, man, where I could pick 100. I'm going to go with somebody that I've been listening to a lot lately and kind of going back into the OG days. So there's an OG by the name of Mr. Jim Rohn, who really set the standard for so many, right? He's kind of this timeless voice. He was really talking about self-leadership before it was a thing, and self-leadership always comes before leadership, and character comes before competence, and discipline and habits is a lifestyle. And so I'm going to go with Mr. Jim Rohn, because he's been speaking about that long before it was popular and social media was a thing.
He's got some of the best quotes, and the most quotes.
So good.
I'm surprised you didn't do Mark Twain's "Don't let school get in the way of a good education."
Education, I do love that.
Education.
I promise we could go into the hundreds on the books, and that would be a whole episode in and of itself.
No, I know. Anyways, those are awesome, and there's a couple of books there that I need to check out. So awesome. We'll have that in the show notes.
Yeah.
My final two questions. One is, what's your idea of living a life of impact?
I appreciate that question so much, because I ask myself that all the time. For me personally, it is, and I'm trying to articulate this the right way so that people understand what I'm saying, but it is optimizing who I am designed to be, so that other humans around me get closer to their own optimization and don't remember that it's because of me at all. That's the best way that I can put it. I don't have any desire to have my name known in perpetuity. I don't have any delusions of any. I'm not important. But I want to be important enough to those around me that I change their lives and they don't have to remember that it's me. Like, to me, that's the kind of impact I want to make. And I do believe that starts with me trying to optimize things for myself as much as humanly possible.
I think that might be the essence of educator right there.
Man.
That's a pretty incredible definition. I love that.
Thank you.
I'll have to remember that one.
Thank you.
Last question. Where can somebody go to find more about you? Apogee, just where would you send them?
You're the best, man. I appreciate it. So the website is apogeestrong.com, APOGEE strong.com. I can be found pretty much everywhere at my name. Feel free to reach out, DM, shoot me an email, matt@apogeestrong. I'm always glad to help. And I do mean that. I still get emails every week from doing Tulsi Gabbard's podcast like 2 years ago. Like, I mean it. I'm glad to help in any way that I can. So shoot me an email, shoot me a DM. Not too hard to find.
Matt, thank you so much. Another great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I really appreciate you sharing your experience and wisdom with Disruptor Nation.
Honor is very much my own, brother. Thank you for how you continue to lead. Honored.